Welcome. Today we will be continuing our discussion on debt, but this time we will be talking about how to deal with it. As long as you took everything into consideration we talked about in the previous video, in other words, you have carefully analyzed whether you need to undertake a debt or not, you have found how much you can undertake, how much you can pay off, how much debt you can get yourself into without getting into trouble in long term, and how your return works on said debt, you should be fine with your current situation at this point. However, if you have not considered them properly, something went wrong, these things unfortunately can happen, then you can end up with a very annoying collector knocking at your door at the end of the day, which is quite unlucky, and we should try to get around it. So as for what we will be talking about in this video, will be how we will discuss how to get around these issues, how you can manage your debts, especially if you have multiple of them. Because if you have just one, chances are you should be fine, as long as you have a decent income level to match it. In that case, your solution is fairly simple. You should just make sure to always pay the minimum amount to get your debt handled, and depending on the interest rate, it's also advisable to just pay it back as soon as possible, whether you invest or not. We will get into that a bit more in detail later on. First, let's focus on the multiple debt issue, since that's the more serious one. If you have gotten into the situation where you have, let's say, a mortgage, some car loans, maybe even a credit card debt, or a personal loan you have undertook, then you are very much in this situation, and that's a situation you really don't want to be in. So how to handle it is crucial for your future. So what can you do? There are two main ways people usually deal with these situations, or economists advise you to deal with. One is called the debt snowball, and one is the debt avalanche. These are a bit different from one another, but not that much. The concept is the same. It's to get your debts out of the way as soon as possible, while focusing pretty much only on them. The main difference is the focus. One of them focuses on a more rational mathematical approach and tries to get you out of your debt as fast as possible, while the other is more of a mental approach, providing a bit slower approach towards handling your debt. However, in exchange, it will help you eliminate sources of debt a bit faster, so you will be more likely to keep going. Statistically speaking, even though the mathematical approach works better, it's faster, still in practice, the more methodical and more mentality focused, so more psychology inspired method seems to work much better with people in general. Which of the two you will choose is up to you. I will introduce both of them right now. Let's start with the debt snowball. This is the more psychology inspired and the one which seems to work better than the other, even though mathematically it shouldn't. It's very simple. First, all you have to do is make a list all of your debts, and list them by their amount, how much you owe to the bank or whatever loaning company you're working with. So rank order them based on that, and while paying the bare minimum to all of your debts, you should never miss out on a payment, you simply pour all of your excess cash, so basically everything you don't need to live or to pay the minimum amounts, you put all of that money towards the smallest debt you have. let's go into an example and it will make sense, I promise. Let's say you have an income of $3,000 a month after taxes. You pay $1,000 on a mortgage with $12,000 left, $200 on a car loan with $5,000 left, $200 on a credit card debt with $15,000 left. Yes, you were really naughty in this example. And finally, $100 on a personal loan. Let's say you just couldn't resist the new Apple product, so you have around $3,000 left on that. Now, you would rank them in order based on how much you have to pay for them in the future, starting from smallest to the largest. You would get personal loan, car loan, mortgage, and credit card. Then you would end up paying the minimum tool for all of them, which will leave you with $15,000 every month. You realize that you are in trouble, so you tighten your belt and live off of $1,000 a month, and now you take the remaining $500 and put it towards prepayment on your personal loan. Once you have eliminated the personal loan, you can have that extra $100 you paid for that added to the $500, so you will have $600 you will be able to use towards your next goal, which will be eliminating the car loan. Then after that's done with, you have an extra $200, so now you have $800 towards your mortgage, and finally you will have $1,800 every month, which you will be able to use to get rid of that pesky credit card debt. With this method, you will absolve yourself of personal loan in around 6 months and some extra remaining towards your car loan, which will be taken care of in another 6 months, together with your mortgage, as it turns out. And finally, you will be able to become debt-free in 7 to 8 months from then on. So, in other words, you will be completely free of all of your debts in around 1.5 years. Mathematically speaking, this is not the best way to get rid of your debt, but psychologically, this way of payment has proven itself to be the most consistent strategy. The main point is to focus on the smallest debt, to free up more cash for you as fast as possible, giving you a moral boost and the feeling of success, which will hopefully get you to continue to pay off these debts a bit more in the future. It also has the added advantage that the freed up cash can be used for, well, to just increase your life's quality as well. So in this example, you only had $1,000 to live on, which is not much. It would be a pretty tight situation for you. But with the extra $100 or $200, you could just keep that for yourself, simply improve your quality of life a bit with that extra cash you now have, and just continue to spend the $500 to pay off the remaining debts. This will slow down the progress, of course, but in exchange you will have a better quality of life, which might be very worthy depending on your current situation. The mathematical model is a bit similar in how it starts. You make the same list. However, this time, instead of using the amount you need to pay off, you rank order your debts based on the interest you have to pay. In other words, you will put the first with the highest interest, the second on the list would be with the second highest interest, and so on, the last being basically the lowest interest that you have. In the previous example, that would most likely look like that the top of the list would be your personal loan with, let's say, 25%. The second would be credit card with a 20% interest. Third would be a car loan with around 8%. And lastly, your mortgage at around 5% interest. This would be and you start eliminating them one by one the same way, focusing on the highest interest rate debt and then moving down until the smallest amount. This is called the debt avalanche strategy, and mathematically it's probably the best way, but again, most likely the snowball will work better if you really give it a try. If you started using the avalanche strategy, then by the same example, if we go down, first your personal loan would disappear in around half a year. The next would be in 8 months' time, would be your mortgage, weirdly enough, which you would be able to funnel into your credit card debt, which will disappear relatively shortly after as well. And if you go through all of them, you will end up finishing all of your debts off around a month earlier. However, in exchange, the time between you eliminating debts would be much longer in a sense. So you would feel worse while doing it, but you would be done a bit faster. That's kind of the trade-off you're getting with between these strategies. The last thing we have to consider is what to do with lower interest debts, since especially if you know of good investment opportunities, or you're already investing, or even if you're just thinking about it, you can very easily find yourself in a situation where you would have a better investment opportunity than the debt you're paying, kind of. For instance, let's say you have a mortgage at 4% interest, but you know that you can invest and get 6 or 7 or 8%, maybe even a lot more yearly for that. In that case, it would be kind of foolish to use that money to pay off the debt instead of just pumping the excess cash you have towards your investment. Whether that's true or not, I will kind of leave it to you, because it really depends on how much trust you have in your investment. Since that in and of itself is kind of an investment, you can think of it that way as well. Like if you pay off your debt, you're basically freeing up your future cash, which is basically the same as if you got, like in the case of your mortgage, if you pay off that debt earlier, then you basically earn yourself 4% interest on the long term. So as a little bit of a recap, if you have debts in your life, be it just one or multiple, the best thing to do is make a list of them, list them off either by the amount you need to pay or by the interest rate. Probably it's better for if you go with the amount, and then start eliminating them one by one. With the added exception that if you have a debt with really low interest rate, like 4 or 5%, chances are you're better off just paying the minimal amounts on that until it's done and put all of your excess cash towards some kind of an investment. Of course, that's only the case if you've already paid off all the higher interest debts. After that, just invest and make sure that your investment earns more than you pay in interest for your remaining debt. As long as you make sure that you do this, you should be completely fine financially. You will be debt free eventually, and your accounts will thank you for that. Thank you for bearing with me through this kind of number heavy and relatively short episode. And be prepared and be glad that the next episode will be even more number heavy and a bit tougher to go through, since I will try to answer the age-old question of whether you should buy or rent a house. That surely will go down smoothly. Anyway, if you've been watching, thank you. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.